Hey everyone, Simon here. So decoding relationships using the tools of both Western and Vedic astrology. This is the topic for today. And this is the topic of a series that I would like to do moving forward, a series of classes leading into what I call the compatibility protocol. And before I launch into that and tell you what I found in my research works for helping you find your soulmate, friend, true love partner, or a good boss work relationship, and what doesn't work, a little bit about my story and how I came into this, since this is an introductory video. People are often surprised and they go, well, didn't you write a book on this stuff? Aren't you the expert? I did write a book called Sex, Love, and Dharma. However, that book should probably have been titled Health, Love, and Dharma, because it's more about helping you regain your health in order to have a better relationship. For example, if you've got gas all the time, it's not romantic. You have bad breath and a headache all the time, it's not conducive to romantic pleasure. So, so in that book, in Sex, Love, and Dharma, I go deeply into Ayurveda topics about helping you regenerate your body, mind, and spirit so that you can be prepared and better equipped to be in a relationship. But that book is not a relationship book because I'm not an expert on relationships. So, you know, and the second thing is that because I'm not an expert on relationships, I've had my own trials and errors. And in the process of diving into and learning and researching both Western and Vedic techniques, I actually discovered something that's outside of techniques, which is what I call the personal handicap. So aside from matching two charts and two people together, before you ever do that, you got to find out what is this person's personal handicap. So like in golf or maybe some other sports where you go in and you have a handicap, meaning, you know, what's your score? What do you shoot? I don't know. I don't play golf. But every person goes into a relationship carrying their handicap. So if you could look above their head, if it were a video game, it would be like, oh, I'm minus 17. Oh, I'm plus 8. I'm minus 35. So I've designed a systematic way to see if, you know, how deep your handicap is. And it's probably not deeper than mine. I'm pretty, you know, pretty way out there. But that helped me discover that I've got a lot to learn when it comes to sustaining fruitful relationships. And so when you meet someone who has, you know, a big negative handicap, you can counsel them in a certain way. Like if they want to get married at age 18 or 22, you might say, listen, it might take some life experience before you can turn this handicap into an asset. And a handicap isn't with you all your life. It's something you can work through. But some people who are very relationship inclined, who have a positive handicap, and there are people out there. I just looked at the horoscope of Barbara Bush, the former First Lady. Tremendous positive personal handicap. She could make any relationship work. That's just how she was built. So certain people, based on their own charts, are either ready for a lifelong commitment and others aren't. And so others have to have more trial and error. So anyhow, in the process of researching this, I discovered the concept of the personal handicap before you ever go into matching charts. And, you know, the third thing is that ultimately everyone is searching for a soulmate. And one of the things that people come to astrologers to find out is, will I find my soulmate, or who is my soulmate, or is this person potentially my soulmate? And I would get that question from clients quite a bit, and I had some basic training in it, but I never felt fully comfortable going deep into chart comparison. And so I decided to solve this and to figure this out, both for myself as well as for clients with whom I work. And so I took a deep dive the past year in researching both Western and Eastern techniques to find out what really works. And so, and I think I found some really interesting stuff, which I call the compatibility protocol, which combines East and West. And so let's start with this word soulmate. So what is a soulmate? So here we have a picture of Krishna and Radha. Whether you're into Eastern philosophy or not, this is in many ways an ideal couple. However, they were together for a season and then never saw each other again. So were they soulmates or not? Well, most people, at least in India, would say yes. And yet Krishna went on to have other spouses. Radha had her spouse, another spouse. And so it really begs the question, what is your soulmate? Now, from the Western view, the Platonic view, that says you are one puzzle piece, your soulmate is another puzzle piece, and when you come together, you become one whole thing. Like you are a half, they are a half, and you got to find your perfect complement. And this is the Platonic ideal. So there's one person out there for you. In the East, which has had the benefit of many more generations of deep spiritual research and thought and inspiration, they take a more mature view of it, which is grounded in the karmic view of reincarnation, which says that we have many soulmates, in the sense that we have many people with whom we have a bond and a connection from previous existence. Now, even if you don't believe in reincarnation, your body is in fact the reincarnation of your ancestors. Your DNA stores the memories of how your great-grandfather ate, how your great-grandmother, exercised or didn't exercise. Your nose is a compilation of their genes and genetics, the color of your skin and the way you talk and walk. Believe it or not, you are the reincarnation of your ancestral lineage. And so, in a sense, you have a debt and a karmic connection to your ancestors at the very least. So we are tied to our genetic lineage, and if you believe in Eastern thought, we are tied to our, which is a karma, by the way. Our genetic lineage is a type of karma, inherited karma. And if you believe in reincarnation, there's a karma from you having lived past lives. So everyone, in a sense, is your soulmate. The question becomes then, in the Eastern view, is you're not just this puzzle with one, thing, and then your partner will come fit you and it's a perfect fit. You have many ways to connect with many different people over a lifetime. The question becomes, how do you connect with someone with whom you can grow and evolve together, rather than creating more negative karma? For example, coming together with someone and bickering, arguing, and creating so much animosity that it has to be worked out that you literally change your DNA, and in the next life, you're going to have to continue working at that. So rather than doing that, how do we find someone with whom we have an evolutionary bond? So that's the question that astrology can help us answer. So in looking at two charts, we can see with whom we have both a compulsive attraction, and I'll get into that right now, that feels so fated, and yet, is it permanent, is it not? We don't know. And with whom we have a true soul link that can last a lifetime. So let's just jump right into this and talk about the astrology of the soulmate connection. And I'm sure there's a ton of these videos out there, and everyone has their view of what is the soulmate combo, and there is no one soulmate combo. The best that I can tell you is that to really know if someone is your true match is to look at the entire criteria, both how you match physically, how you match emotionally, how you match spiritually, who will help the other evolve, how you match financially, socially, will you two improve each other's careers or pull them down? All of that factors in. And of course, in the middle of it is love. Can there be love between these two people? And believe it or not, in the East, in the Vedic traditions, they found a way to measure that. And we use the best of that tradition and throw in some of the Western findings. So the first one I want to talk about is the Rahu Ketu connection, the nodes of the moon. So the nodes of the moon, which I've talked about in other videos, Decoding Your Life Map with Vedic astrology. If you're not familiar with the nodes and the myth of Rahu Ketu, you can watch that. But basically, it's this one being, this very powerful being who craved the nectar of immortality. Basically, they wanted it all. They wanted to be immortal, to always feel good. You know, that ideal of the fountain of youth. But it wasn't Rahu's lot to achieve that in life. And so, nonetheless, Rahu got the nectar. And in a sense, Rahu overcame even God. Because in this myth, the creator or God, the supreme Vishnu, did not want Rahu to have this. And yet Rahu still achieved that. So Rahu is the power of the human mind and will, which says, I'm going to get this. And against all odds, Rahu achieved that. But as a result, paid the price by being cut in two. And so Rahu and Ketu are opposite nodes of the moon, where when the sun and the moon cross, an eclipse happens. And they're seen as these forever two opposite poles. And so all that Rahu Ketu want is to be whole again. And this is very much the Platonic myth of the soulmate, right? These two opposites wanting to merge. But just like the Platonic myth, Rahu Ketu was a bit immature because he didn't understand that. So why shouldn't he have the nectar? Why was it such a bad thing? Because it wasn't his dharma. Dharma means what's right for you. Why wasn't it his dharma? Because he was a being who was trapped with tons of lust and hatred, and he had all these powerful emotions. And to spend an eternity living those emotions is tantamount to being in hell. So God, in the form of Vishnu, wanted to spare him that fate. So you see, it was an act of compassion that he was not allowed to have that, because God knew what Rahu Ketu would go through. An eternity of just ferocity and but immortal. But of course, Rahu overcame, in a sense. So the power of the human mind is greater than even the power of the divine. But the question is it right? So that's why there's a thing called dharma, which I've written a few books about, in case you didn't know, to help you know where you should focus your mind, so that you don't end up like Rahu and Ketu, a sundered, divided being. Okay, astrologically, shut up, Simon, get to the astrology, all this philosophy. Okay, and I promise in future videos there'll be less philosophy and more actual techniques, okay? So Rahu Ketu represent this immature kind of thing of like, oh my God, I found my ideal. Oh, our connection is so strong. I can feel it all in my chakras. Oh my God, Rahu, right? Oh, this person just lights me up like a Christmas tree. Okay, I know that's mostly in California, but I'm sure you guys have felt something like this. So this happens when the node, Rahu or Ketu, connects. So your Rahu connects with the other person's moon, sun, ascendant, or Venus. Okay? Those are the four cornerstones. Sun, moon, ascendant, Venus, moon, sun, ascendant, Venus. Those are the four cornerstones. You could read more about the four cornerstones in Hart Defoe's book, Light on Relationships, an excellent reference that has a lot of the techniques that I use in the compatibility protocol and adapt. But an excellent book which you should get if you're interested in relationship astrology from the Vedic perspective. So the four cornerstones, quiz, are moon, sun, ascendant, Venus. Or in any order, it doesn't matter, or sun, moon, ascendant, Venus. So when your Rahu touches one of those, it creates a compulsive connection, what I call a compulsive connection. So here is an example of a score sheet from my compatibility protocol. And here you see compulsive connections. Okay, Rahu, Ketu. Let me move my mug out of the way here. All right. So this is a sample worksheet. We also have, which we'll get to, harsh lessons with Saturn, sweet vibes with Jupiter, and so on. But today we're going to talk about Rahu, Ketu. So what is a compulsive connection? It is either you love the person or you hate them and you don't know why. Because Rahu, Ketu are almost an ancestral bond connection to this person. Something in your, Rahu, Ketu rules your ancestral lineage in many ways. Even physically, your DNA. So something, when your Rahu connects to another person's cornerstones, something in your genetic lineage wakes up and goes, hey, I know this person, or I need this person. Something about their smell, or something about the way they look, something about their figure, something about the sound of their voice just triggers something inside you. And it becomes a compulsive pull. If it's your Rahu that's connected, it's a pull through your senses, because Rahu is the head of the two-headed, of the Sundar dragon. So the eyes, the tongue, the skin. Whereas if it's Ketu, it's more of an instinctive bond, something you can't put your finger on. Like with Rahu, it's like, oh my God, when I hear her voice, or when I hear his voice, I just melt. But when it's with Ketu, it's like, man, there's something, just the way I feel when I'm around her is just different, right? It's a more instinctive, even a spiritual thing that's not sensual. It's more beyond the five senses. Okay, so what's the technique? When your Rahu or Ketu touch one of these other four. What do I mean by touch? Generally, when they're in the same house or opposite house. Okay? There's some kind of Rahu Ketu event going on out here. I don't know if you can hear the dogs. I'm in Indonesia, by the way, where Rahu Ketu is, and that energy is very much respected. And there's a deep reverence for the ancestors. Every morning when you come out in Bali and walk down the street, the whole neighborhood smells like incense. Why? Because they are lighting incense offerings to their ancestors every morning, and they put it on my scooter, motorcycle, they put it on the front porch, they put it everywhere, and the whole neighborhood smells like incense. It's a beautiful way to live, and it's really good for the incense business, if that's your business. But the point is, they honor their ancestors, and Rahu Ketu is a way to connect to your ancestors. And when your Rahu Ketu connects to another person's cornerstones, there is a genetic DNA connection. But is that enough then to hold a relationship? We'll talk about that in a second. So what does it mean when they're in the same sign, okay, or in the opposite signs? Now, Rahu can also aspect 5-9 away. So 5 houses from himself and 9 houses away. Only Rahu, not Ketu, because Rahu has drishti, he can see. Ketu is, again, doesn't have any of the senses open. So when you're, so for example, I guess I could pull up a couple of charts. Hold on 1 second. I'll pull up a couple of example charts here. And well, you know what? I'm not going to pull up charts now. This is just going to be a tutorial. But in the charts of some famous couples who have lasted through time, you find, sometimes you find a strong Rahu connection. But it's always coupled with the other soulmate connections, which I'll talk about, which are what I call the more mature soulmate connections. So to recap, and by the way, there's an article on this below this video, so you can read about the specifics. When Rahu Ketu from your chart touches your partner's cornerstones, it creates a compulsive connection. When the Rahu Ketu of your partner's chart touches your cornerstones, same thing. The more connections there are, the more intense. Now, the closer they are in degrees, so if they're within, like if your Rahu is 28 and your partner's Venus is at 2, yeah, that's going to have an effect, but not as strong as if your Rahu is at 28 and your partner's Venus is at 27. Now, there's something happening here, and it's much more intense. And so in the compatibility protocol, I weigh them. So the closer the connection, the more points you give that. And with Rahu, I give what I call, which I give plus minus points, which are in the beginning of a relationship, you can count it as a plus because it'll feel like this very strong connection. But be ready later on, 6 months to a year and a half, because it takes Rahu Ketu a year and a half to transit a sign, for that connection to turn, and at times to be a minus. So let's say your score, however you want to score it, is plus minus 10. So in the beginning, it's going to feel like you're plus 10, like, wow, I have this amazing connection. But over time, be ready for that to become a minus 10. So do you have the core compatibility in other ways, which I'll talk about here, what I call the core connection, and perhaps even more important, the soulmate indicators. In my next video, I'll talk about these. Do you have a core connection that can handle that plus minus volatility? Rahu and Ketu are volatile. If you do, then your relationship will survive. And Rahu Ketu will add that air of fantasy, mystery, fascination, inspiration. But sometimes it'll also create delusion. It'll create fear, anxiety. It'll create confusion and doubt. So be ready for that if you have strong Rahu Ketu connections. And so we'll continue this protocol in the next video. But to summarize for today, Rahu Ketu, the nodes of the moon, represent the Platonic ideal of the soulmate, which, to be honest with you, in my opinion, is a rather immature way of looking at relationships. Because if there's only one person in the world for you, number one, it makes it hard to find that person. And number two, what if that person dies when you're just 25? Now what? Are you doomed for the rest of your life to be without a mate? Well, maybe. Certainly there's a time of grieving, but think about it. So the Vedic position says that we have many options. And the question is, who among the people that are available is the best option? And can we have a relationship that's worthy of a lifetime of mutual growth? And do we support each other's dharma? So we will cover more soulmate indicators in the next video. I hope this was a good introduction for y'all. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below, and we'll see you next time. All right. Oh, and if you are interested in the compatibility protocol, that is, those of you who are watching this past the date, you can go to either cosmicinsights.com or my website, spirittype.com, to get more details. If you're watching this before January 27th, which is just a couple of days from now, there will be a live webinar where you can ask live questions, January 27th. Go to cosmicinsights.com or .net, I'm not sure, and register for that webinar, January 27, 2019. If you're watching this and it's past, don't worry. You can get that webinar and the whole protocol on my website or on the Cosmic Insights website. All right, so we'll see you guys in the next video, and take care for now.